Imagine waking up and suddenly everything around you looks wrong. The chair you normally sit in looks like a giant skyscraper. Your coffee mug seems enormous, almost too big to hold. Even the walls of your bedroom feel like they're stretching endlessly. You rub your eyes, thinking it must be a dream, but it's not. For some people, this is reality. This strange and rare condition is called Alice in Wonderland Syndrome. It's named after the story of Alice, who wandered through a world where nothing seemed normal. Today we're going to explore what it's like to live with this condition, hear real stories from people who experience it, and understand why the brain sometimes tricks us into seeing the world in such a bizarre way. Before we dive in, ask yourself, have you ever looked at your hand and thought it looked bigger or smaller than it actually is? For most people, that's just a fleeting thought. For some, it's their reality every day, every episode, every moment. So what exactly is Alice in Wonderland Syndrome? In simple terms, it's a neurological condition that distorts perception. Objects may appear much larger or much smaller than they are. Your own body may feel different, hands too big, feet too small, or your head feeling unusually large. Time itself can become strange. Seconds may feel like minutes, or minutes might stretch into what feels like hours. People with this syndrome often describe the world as dreamlike or surreal, as if reality itself is bending around them. Children and adults can both experience it. Most cases are triggered by migraines, viral infections, or unusual brain activity. Episodes can last from a few minutes to several hours, and some people experience them occasionally, while others have them more frequently. Because this syndrome is so rare, many people never talk about it. They might worry others won't believe them, or that they'll be dismissed as imagining things. But science has proven it's real. It's a documented phenomenon that occurs all over the world, and the experiences are as fascinating as they are unsettling. Imagine trying to pour cereal into a bowl that suddenly seems like a mountain, or reaching for your door handle only to find it looks like the size of a small car. These aren't exaggerations. They're real perceptions for those who live with Alice in Wonderland Syndrome. Now let's explore some of the symptoms in more detail. One of the most common experiences is called micropsia, where objects appear smaller than they really are. The opposite is macropsia, where everything appears much larger. Some people experience metamorphopsia, where straight lines may look bent, or objects seem to warp unexpectedly. And it's not just objects. People often report their own bodies feeling distorted. Hands might seem gigantic, legs tiny, or the head strangely elongated. Even familiar surroundings, rooms, furniture, hallways, can appear warped, making navigation a real challenge. It's also important to know that Alice in Wonderland Syndrome is often linked to migraines. Migraines in children or adults can trigger episodes, sometimes before a headache even starts. Other triggers include viral infections, certain medications, or neurological changes. The brain's parietal lobe, which processes spatial awareness, size, and distance, seems to play a key role in these distortions. For a moment, imagine trying to walk down your hallway when every piece of furniture seems to stretch or shrink unpredictably. Or think about the stress of navigating a city street when cars and people appear distorted in size. These are daily challenges for those with this rare condition. Despite these challenges, many people find ways to adapt. Some memorize layouts of their rooms to avoid bumping into objects. Others rely on familiar landmarks or slow down their movements during episodes. In rare cases, some even find creative inspiration in their altered perceptions, using art or music to explore the surreal experiences their brain creates. Let's start with the story of a 12-year-old boy. One morning, he woke up and noticed something strange. His bedroom furniture looked enormous. The chair he sat in every day seemed as tall as a skyscraper. His cereal bowl in the kitchen appeared like a mountain, towering over him as he reached for his spoon. At first, he was scared and confused. His parents thought he was joking, but it wasn't. The boy's perception of the world had completely shifted. They took him to a doctor who diagnosed him with Alice in Wonderland Syndrome, triggered by a migraine episode. It was a relief to finally have a name for what he was experiencing, but the challenge was far from over. He had to learn to adapt. Every day he memorized the layout of his home, carefully navigating around what now seemed like massive obstacles. Simple tasks like reaching for a book or walking down the hallway required intense focus. Despite the difficulties, he also found moments of wonder. Seeing ordinary objects grow or shrink gave him a new perspective on the world, and sometimes even inspired creativity. He drew sketches of how his room looked during an episode, creating what his family called miniature surreal art. Next, let's meet a young woman in her early 20s. Her episodes were less about the size of objects and more about the flow of time itself. Seconds stretched into minutes, and minutes felt like hours. Walking through her city felt surreal. Sidewalks seemed longer than they were, traffic lights lingered too long, and her surroundings appeared subtly warped. She described feeling disoriented, like she was trapped in a dream she couldn't wake up from. Even familiar streets felt unfamiliar. Each trip to work became an exercise in extreme concentration and careful navigation. Doctors determined that her syndrome was also linked to migraines, though the episodes were primarily perceptual rather than painful. Over time, she developed coping strategies. She memorized her route to work, timed her activities carefully, and learned to slow down when her perception felt altered. Despite the challenges, she found beauty in the strangeness. Seeing the world bend and stretch gave her a unique perspective on everyday life. She started journaling her experiences, capturing vivid descriptions that helped her process and even appreciate the surreal moments. Our third story follows a man in his 20s who experienced episodes in crowded spaces. Imagine walking through a busy city street, but every person around you seems to shift in size. Some people shrink, others grow taller, and objects in the environment warp unpredictably. This man discovered his condition after multiple episodes caused him stress and confusion in public areas. Doctors eventually linked it to a viral infection he had a few weeks prior, which triggered episodes of Alice in Wonderland Syndrome. Navigating daily life became a challenge. He had to anticipate how his surroundings might appear differently at any moment. Even simple tasks like walking down the street or picking up groceries required intense focus and careful planning. He developed strategies to cope. He avoided particularly crowded areas when possible, and when he couldn't, he focused intently on fixed points in his environment to maintain balance and orientation. Through his experiences, he realized something profound. The world isn't always perceived the same way by everyone. These episodes made him hyper-aware of his senses and surroundings, and in some ways he became more mindful of the world than ever before. These stories show just how varied experiences with Alice in Wonderland Syndrome can be. For some, objects grow or shrink. For others, time itself can feel distorted. Every case is unique, but the underlying theme is the same. The brain is capable of bending reality in ways that seem almost magical or terrifying. Now we're going to explore even more real-life stories, some stranger, and more extreme than the ones we've already heard. From teenagers feeling their rooms come alive to adults finding creative inspiration in the midst of episodes, the diversity of experiences is astonishing. But first, let's pause for a moment. Imagine experiencing even one of these episodes. How would you feel? Confused, afraid, curious? The truth is, for people living with this syndrome, these episodes can be all of these at once, and more. A 15-year-old teenager began noticing something unusual one morning. His bedroom felt like it was moving. Chairs shifted slightly from where they were, lamps seemed taller or shorter, and the walls appeared to pulse as he walked around. Even his own body didn't feel normal. His hands looked slightly elongated, and his feet appeared miniature. At first, he was frightened. Every morning felt like entering a surreal dream. He avoided walking too quickly and spent extra time getting ready, carefully navigating the ever-changing room. Over time, he learned patterns in the episodes. Certain objects would always appear larger, some smaller, and his brain seemed to anticipate the distortions. He began to sketch what he saw, creating illustrations that captured the bizarre and shifting landscape of his room. His parents, initially skeptical, became supportive once they saw the sketches. They marveled at the detail and creativity, realizing that their child's condition was not just real, it was inspiring. Next, we meet a young woman experiencing her first pregnancy. During her second trimester, she noticed episodes where the world around her became distorted. Objects, including her own body, seemed to stretch and shrink unpredictably. Even walking through her home required intense focus, as furniture appeared enormous one moment and tiny the next. Doctors confirmed her condition was Alice in Wonderland Syndrome, likely triggered by the hormonal changes of pregnancy combined with migraines. She learned to slow down her movements, taking care with everyday tasks. Despite the difficulty, she discovered moments of fascination. She described the world as like seeing through a magical lens, where ordinary objects suddenly became extraordinary. Her story highlights that AIWS doesn't discriminate. Anyone, at any stage of life, can experience it. Some people find inspiration in their episodes. One adult artist experienced micropsia and macropsia during brief but frequent episodes. Instead of seeing them as purely frustrating, he began to paint the world as he saw it during these moments. Chairs, tables, and streets would warp and twist on his canvas, creating surreal, dreamlike images that captured the imagination. Friends and gallery visitors marveled at his work, noting that his paintings seemed to show a hidden layer of reality, a world few people ever perceive. For him, AIWS became more than a condition. It became a source of creativity and self-expression, turning what could be fear or confusion into art. Another inspiring story comes from a child learning to play the piano. During episodes, the piano keys appeared enormous. She had to carefully adjust her fingers to reach each note, which was initially frustrating. But over time, her dexterity improved. She became more precise with her movements, and her ability to anticipate key placement actually advanced faster than her peers. This story shows that even within challenges, there can be unexpected benefits. Alice in Wonderland Syndrome may distort perception, but it can also teach adaptation, focus, and creativity. Some cases of AIWS are more extreme, highlighting just how surreal the condition can become. For instance, a young adult reported that entire streets appeared to ripple and stretch while walking through the city. Buildings seemed to bend and sway, and cars elongated in strange ways. The episodes were brief, but navigating public spaces required intense concentration to avoid accidents. Another individual experienced episodes triggered by viral infections. While cooking, the kitchen counter appeared to grow and shrink unpredictably. Utensils seemed to float or warp as she reached for them, making simple tasks challenging and sometimes frightening. Pregnancy-related episodes, like we discussed earlier, also reveal how hormonal and neurological changes can intensify symptoms. Some people even report auditory distortions during episodes. Sounds may echo, change pitch, or feel unusually distant. These rare experiences underscore the complex ways the brain interacts with perception. Even scientists are still trying to fully understand the mechanics behind these phenomena. Living with AIWS requires patience, awareness, and adaptability. Many people develop strategies to navigate daily life. Children often rely on parental guidance and familiar landmarks. Adults may use memorization, focus techniques, or slow, deliberate movements. Some keep journals to document episodes, tracking triggers and patterns. This not only helps predict episodes, but also provides a creative outlet for processing the experience. In some cases, people learn to embrace the distortions. Artists, musicians, and writers often turn these surreal perceptions into creative inspiration. The world becomes a canvas for imagination, turning fear into fascination. Even simple mindfulness exercises can help. Focusing on one object at a time, slowing down movements, and practicing controlled breathing can reduce anxiety during episodes. Did Lewis Carroll experience AIWS himself? Some researchers speculate that the author of Alice in Wonderland may have drawn from personal episodes of distorted perception. The vivid imagery in his stories, the stretching, shrinking, and shifting of objects, mirrors many experiences reported by people today. Whether or not he actually had AIWS, the parallels are fascinating. In modern media, AIWS continues to inspire. Films, television shows, and art installations explore altered perception, dreamlike realities, and warped worlds, all echoing the experiences of those living with this rare syndrome. Now that we've heard the stories, let's dive into the science behind Alice in Wonderland Syndrome. At the center of these strange perceptions is a part of the brain called the parietal lobe. This area helps us understand space, distance, and the size of objects. It tells our brain this chair is normal. That cup is small, but in people with AIWS, this system sometimes misfires. During an episode, the brain receives conflicting signals, and suddenly, your perception of reality bends. Objects appear huge or tiny. Time feels slow or fast. Even your own body can seem distorted. Migraines are one of the most common triggers. Some people experience visual distortions right before a migraine hits. Others have AIWS without pain, triggered by viruses or neurological conditions. Medical researchers are still uncovering the mysteries of this syndrome. Functional brain imaging shows unusual activity in areas that process visual information and spatial awareness. It's a reminder that our perception of reality is delicate, and that the brain can create experiences that feel real, even when they are distortions. Some people not only see objects differently, but also hear, feel, or even sense time in unusual ways. For example, some report sounds echoing or changing pitch during episodes. Others feel like their hands or feet are heavier or lighter than normal. Time may drag or fly, creating moments that feel like minutes, stretching into hours, or seconds that vanish in an instant. One fascinating discovery is that AIWS sometimes overlaps with other neurological conditions, such as epilepsy. Seizures, migraines, or viral infections can all trigger episodes, making diagnosis challenging. Despite the strangeness, episodes are usually temporary and self-limiting. Children often outgrow them, while adults may experience occasional episodes throughout life. The key is understanding triggers and learning coping strategies. The name Alice in Wonderland Syndrome comes from Lewis Carroll's famous book, And it's no coincidence. The fantastical world Alice experiences, shrinking, growing, and walking through impossible spaces, mirrors many experiences reported by real people with AIWS. Beyond literature, AIWS continues to inspire pop culture and science fiction. Movies, TV shows, and video games explore worlds where perception shifts, creating surreal, dreamlike experiences. For those living with AIWS, these fictional worlds may feel oddly familiar. Curiously, AIWS also challenges how we define normal perception. What if everyone experienced a little bit of AIWS? Would our perspective of reality and creativity be different? Some scientists even suggest that AIWS provides a unique window into understanding the brain's visual and spatial processing. By studying these episodes, researchers can uncover how the brain constructs reality and why it sometimes misfires in such fascinating ways. Living with AIWS requires adaptation and mindfulness. People develop strategies like memorizing familiar spaces to avoid collisions, slowing down movements during episodes, keeping journals to track triggers and patterns, creative outlets like drawing or music to express distorted perceptions. One adult artist, for example, paints objects exactly as they appear during an episode. The result is surreal, dreamlike art that astonishes viewers and transforms fear into creativity. Children often adapt through parental guidance, careful observation, and routine. These strategies allow them to navigate a distorted world safely and even enjoy its strange beauty. So what can we learn from these experiences? Alice in Wonderland Syndrome reminds us that reality is subjective. What one person perceives may differ completely from someone else's experience. It also highlights the brain's power and creativity. While episodes can be challenging or frightening, they can also spark curiosity, creativity, and resilience. Imagine navigating a world where your body feels foreign, objects shift unexpectedly, and time stretches or compresses at random. For those with AIWS, these experiences are a daily reality. Yet they find ways to adapt, explore, and sometimes even thrive creatively. Through these stories, we glimpse the fragility and brilliance of human perception, understanding that even the ordinary can become extraordinary under the right or strange circumstances. If you enjoyed learning about Alice in Wonderland Syndrome, imagine exploring other rare conditions that change how people perceive reality. What would it be like to experience the world in a completely different way? How would you navigate your home, your city, or your daily life if everything seemed slightly unreal? Share your thoughts in the comments. And if you want more mind-bending stories about rare conditions, unusual phenomena, and the incredible ways our brains work, hit like and subscribe. Reality may seem fixed, but for some, it's constantly shifting, stretching, and growing right before their eyes. And sometimes, understanding these experiences helps us appreciate the incredible complexity of our own minds.